It's the new Jennifer's Angels podcast. This episode is Accountability Angel, Cynthia Caro. I am Ale Caro, this week's co-host, and I have a special reveal about our new guest and me.
And I'm Aaron Sutliff, the Division Chief of the Protective Order Unit at the El Paso County Attorney's Office. Yup, we did it again. This week's co-host is related to our guest.
Yeah, I know her from somewhere or other. Cynthia Caro is my mom.
Aha. Well, I'm glad you're able to place that name with a face. But before we get started, Ale, people don't know you, and so will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a senior at Eastwood High School in the top 5% of my class. I'm in a rock band called Jane Like Fire. I play lead guitar, I sing. I'm an artist, and I run cross country at Eastwood.
I'm exhausted just hearing about it. Yeah, you're a busy lady. One of my heroes of a certain age. I think that's really cool, all that stuff you get into.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so here it goes. I'm gonna tell you about your mom as if you need to know. But Cynthia Morales Caro is a lifetime advocate for women's issues and justice. She graduated from Del Valle High School and earned a degree in psychology from UTEP. After college, she began her career at the Center Against Family Violence as a victim advocate. Within a year, she became a battering intervention and prevention program, BIP for short, counselor. We'll hear more on that in a minute, facilitating accountability groups for men who batter. She also became an expert witness on domestic violence, assisting the El Paso District Attorney's Office by educating juries on complex issues in domestic violence cases. I saw this amazing work firsthand. Additionally, she served on the BIP accreditation process for the state of Texas, helping standardize and monitor programs to improve victim safety across the entire state. And then later, Cynthia transitioned to the public sector, joining the El Paso County Community Supervision and Corrections Department. In other words, adult probation. She gets a long title and probably a short paycheck, but where she currently serves as Director of Programs and Operations. She oversees special programs, manages specialized funding, and provides outputs and statistics demonstrating program impacts and outcomes. And don't forget that she's been married for 20 years and is a proud mother of two daughters, one you just met, Alessandra, and Andrea, who inspire her commitment to empowering women and fostering safe community. Welcome, my friend Cynthia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you are on my short list. I wanted to get the coolest people with the coolest children to come on this podcast and talk about all sorts of amazing stuff. So I'm very glad you agree.
I am very honored. I am very honored. I hope that I can provide as much information as I can to educate, because I'm always trying to do that. But thank you for having me.
It's fun because people come on a podcast like this and they're like, I'm nervous, I'm worried. And I'm like, no, it's just us girls talking. We're cool.
Yeah, for sure. I can feel like, okay, what am I going to say? What is he going to ask me? Is he going to
Right?
ask me about that time when we went out and we were hanging out? And oh, no, 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 please don't ask me
No, it's
that.
coming up. It's coming up. But the first question I've given to my amazing co-host, so I'll let her take the ball.
Yeah, all right. I do get to ask the first question. All right, you ready? Who are you?
I am a mom. I think that's my most important job. Everything that I do kind of feeds into that, right? So I'm an advocate for women's issues. Why? Because I feel that it's important that my kids, my girls have a good future. Not just my girls, but all girls. Um, and that they don't experience what I've seen in the domestic violence field. I am a mom who works very hard. I have very strong ethical work values that I hope that my children can see. And I am a mom also because I am a band mom and I follow my kid around every the bars and Wednesday night when I'm super tired, but I'm a mom, so I'm there. And I'm a soccer mom, and I just came back from Tucson in Phoenix this past weekend where Andrea, my youngest, had a soccer game in Tucson, then two in Phoenix the day after that and the day after that, and then driving back home and then going back to work in the morning. Like, I'm a mom. I am a good wife, I hope. Also, he tells me I am, but I hope.
Co-host, is it okay if I ask a follow-up question? Are you okay with that, Ale?
Of course.
So I heard you, Cynthia, say mom a couple times. So I think I'm pretty clear on that one. And then advocate. That's a term that we in the movement, the domestic violence movement, use, but I don't know that everyone that listens knows what an advocate is. It's a specific thing. Would you talk about that?
So it's when you have a belief that you instill it so valuable that it becomes a part of you. And you always want to speak on its behalf and you always want to protect it. And even when you feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say something, an advocate will always say something, even if it feels uncomfortable or this or the environment isn't quite right. As an advocate, you always want to throw in those 2 cents because it's what you believe so passionately. As an advocate for women's issues, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, me and Ale went to a protest. I was so proud of her wanting to come with me because that's what I believe, and I can see that that kind of filtered to her as well. So as an advocate, I'm also educating my kids on what's important.
So, Ale, this is your one chance to ask your hard-hitting question. Actually, you have another question coming up too, but do you have any follow-ups for your mom?
Well, I mean to ask, how have you helped boys and girls develop a healthy self-image?
I wish I could do more than what have done so far. Because again, it's what I believe, right? I can tell you that when I see a kid or when I'm talking to you or your sister or your friends, I do try and to kind of advocate in my own way, right? Push that, drop those 2 cents. But I think it's extremely important that we create or that young people create an identity that isn't dependent on outside approval, right?
Mhm.
I'm going to do what other people want me to do, or I'm going to do what other people think it's cool because other people did it, I should do it too. It's really easy to go with the flow even when the flow isn't the right thing to do. When kids are doing things right, it's really important to me to point it out for sure. I think it's super important to teach emotions. I don't know if you remember, Ali, when you were little, and I would tell you, make a mad face. Okay, now make a surprise face. Now make an annoyed face. And we were playing around, and she would make all these faces, but it was my way of showing emotion, right? Learning how to teach emotion. Emotion is important because it helps with like conflict resolution and it helps you identify how you're feeling. Ultimately, in the big picture, when you're thinking about self identity, you need to know yourself, and knowing how you feel and where you stand is important, whether that's something personal or something within your community or your society that you're in. I don't know if you remember also, Ale, I would tell you and your sister, negotiate, work it out. What would you say?
I mean, I would fight you on it, but
Right. And then you'd be,
oh,
Andrea, let's negotiate. Right.
yeah.
Um, so that's also important because we need to learn, even at a young age, how to find conflict resolution. Of course, education. I remember working at the Battery and Intervention and Prevention Program, and we would teach men who were in the criminal justice system for hurting their spouse. And the majority of the time it was men, but we would teach them how to negotiate and how to have express their feelings and emotions. And this was a foreign world to them. And so, it was very important to teach them accountability and owning your feelings, right? So being able to teach that to our younger kids is extremely important. I think that's a very long answer for my question.
It's a great answer. Hey, Cynthia, so all of the battery intervention and prevention program work that you did before, those seeds you sowed back then, I know have blossomed over the years. So you were dealing with adults, but all those adults, or many of those adults, go home to kids, right? And they model masculinity. They have girls in their household, so I can definitely see how those seeds were sown and how they bloomed. But I'd also I'm interested. I think that your work now is in many ways the same thing. I know you're not dealing directly or working directly with offenders necessarily, but a sort of a systemic approach to helping people become accountable and move forward after doing bad acts seems really important and integral. So you could tell me you disagree or agree, or what do you think about that thought?
I definitely agree. One of the first things that I noticed when I started working with probation, the our probation department is it's rather large program, and it has a residential program. Um, and then this residential program, it was at the time, the majority of men, maybe like 80 men, able to house like 100, right? But there's like 80 men in this one residential facility. And then I realized that the issues within that facility were very similar to the issues that I would see at the shelter. And then
Mhm.
I realized, wait a minute, I'm on the other side now. Like I was working with victims, and you would see like a lot of like fighting for toilet paper. It wasn't petty. It's just that they never had that, they had to hoard because that's all they needed to survive. Then they were in survivor mode. But when you were working with the men, it was quite similar, and I thought it was so bizarre that the it was more of a human behavior that we were experiencing in both. Um, and so that leads me to think that, the accountability in both the male and female, regardless of how they got there, um, was the same accountability and being able to 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 grow up in a more healthier environment. Their backgrounds were very similar, and coming back from an unhealthy backgrounds, it was very interesting to see how growing up there was a lot of similarities within the two. So yeah, definitely see a link there because of that, and definitely accountability. And ultimately, what we want is community safety, and you just don't get there by saying do A, B, and C. You got to see where is this person at and where can I get them to where I need them to be. My goal as in probation is to have them not come back into the system, to have them rehabilitate, if you will, to make sure that they have a better outcome in the future. So, that said, you got to work individually with that person. Everybody's different, although they all come from similar backgrounds. What motivates them as an individual is different, and we got to work each case and see how can I get you to not do this again. So somebody who the one of the worst cases that you see in my opinion is like a sexual offender.
Mm,
um and it's very hard to work with a sexual offender because with a sexual offender I have to get this person to go to treatment.
mm,
If I'm mad at him, he's not going to go to treatment. I can't
mm,
persuade him to get help. So part of that accountability is understanding, not why he did that, but understanding where that person is at right now to get them to get that treatment, to get them to go do that, UA, so to make sure that their drug test is clean, to get them to follow these conditions of probation, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to keep my community safe. If I judge him, he's never going to listen to me, and he's just going to fight me the whole way. And that's not going to help anybody. And if anything, it can create more victims. What I'm trying to do again, ultimately, is victim safety for sure.
Cynthia, I wanted to ask a follow-up question where I want to identify that you've used gendered language, and I want to accept and understand that you've used gendered language to refer to victims and batterers. So that's the first part of my question. And then the second part is realizing that people come to things sometimes from a traumatized place. But if you're a man, you may have a certain reaction and approach versus a woman. And uh, how you've seen those manifest.
Because of our common backgrounds, gender roles are very much alive and
Mm,
and thriving. And whether it's the female or the male, they tend to fall within those categories. So the male is looked at as more dominant, do as I say, not as I do, physically more strength, right? So you definitely see that even today, where when I say they're very similar and they're coming from the same background, it's because the men are learning to be the traditional male of dominant physically and dominant over our females do's and don'ts, and then the women are learning to be submissive, and so you still see that today. And I want to say like, oh, that's old thinking, you know. Luckily, it's old thinking for people who have come from a family that's been educated on it and they don't experience that as much. But unfortunately, there's a lot of unhealthy families that still are like that. So when I say men typically are the aggressors, it's because again it comes from that same background where they're dominant over it and over the female, and they've been brought up that way, as the female has been brought up to be more submissive. You do see where the women can be the aggressors, but there's no denying in our stats that men are definitely more so than females.
Yeah, and the lethality side of it, I think all the literature talks about that is you're much more likely to be killed as a woman by your intimate partner than a man by your intimate partner, and nobody should get hit at home. I think we can all agree with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think one thing that I learned is when I was learning about domestic violence just right out of college, right? You learn where you're working, you become that expert in your field. And I realized back then, maybe I was maybe 24 years old. Um, I'm
So
not going
last
to
year
marry.
is what you're talking about?
Yeah, last year, of
A
course.
couple of years ago. Yeah, okay.
I'm not going to marry anybody who doesn't understand healthy relationships because I don't want to end up this way. And I didn't know this wasn't healthy because I saw it within my own family. That was normal. And then, interestingly enough, I did end up marrying my husband, who was also a bib counselor. So he did know these healthy steps, right? So I think that's one of the things that I initially um, attracted me to him, was that okay, he understands, he gets it. Um, and from that point, I wanted to make sure that my kids knew it's not about educating your kids on what's healthy. It's letting them see it and experience it. And so um it really, like, even before my kids were born, I knew that my relationship and my family was going to look very different than mine.
Cynthia, this is the part where I get to turn the tables on my co-host. So Ale, so I'm turning the tables on you, and I get to ask you a question. I'd like to know about any challenges you've had in developing a healthy self-image.
Ooh, okay. Well, this is something I'm still facing because I'm still
Mm.
growing up, but a lot of growing up I think is trying to find compromises with like your own beliefs, right? Like you don't want to be, let's say, too self-centered or too disruptive in like a public setting, but you also don't want to be too, maybe too shy, or maybe too like too much of like a people pleaser. So a lot of my growing up has revolved around trying to find a balance and learning how to read the room so that I can understand like, oh, maybe like understand how to act and how to behave, but also like while maintaining like who I am and staying true to myself. So it's kind of just been like just kind of been juggling my beliefs around, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But I've been able to grow by a lot of self-reflecting. I do it a lot while I'm running, honestly. And just thinking, I'm like, okay, like let's say something happened. I was like, okay, did it hurt my feelings? Should I confront it? Is it not worth it? But should I do this? Should I like? It's just a lot of self-reflection is what's really important. I'd say.
Ale, I've been there with you on the trail where I'm like running and I'm like thinking about like an argument I had while I'm running past the weeds or by the river or whatever. And I'm like, why, what? And then I work things out. So that's a super smart way of approaching it. And you run a lot, right?
Yes, I do twice a day, every day.
Wow. Were you going to say something, Cynthia?
I was just gonna say that I want Ali to tell you what happened the other day. She had a gig at a bar, and all her gigs are at bars, like in at night, and yeah, they're the only kids around, um, which is why I'm there, of course. But there was this guy that was bugging her. You want to tell him about that, Erin? I mean, I'm sorry. You want to tell him about that, Ali?
Yeah, sure. I'd forgotten about it. So waiting for my parents to get back. They were saying hi to some people who were there to watch my gig at the bar, right? And I was just sitting at the table, and this man, I thought he was gay. I'm so sorry. He approaches me. He's like,
At
"Hey,"
the,
and in my head, I'm like, "Oh, I'm probably supposed to know him from somewhere, right?" And my parents get back. I was like, "Hey, where do we know him from?" I point him out. They're like, "We don't." And then 5 minutes later, he like tries to bug me again. And I'm like, "No way. I just struck the age of 18. Like, what is this?" It kind of freaked me out. But I wasn't cordial about it at all. I screeched at him, "I'm a minor." Yeah, it's a lie. I just turned 18. But still, I was like under the legal drinking age, and he looked very old. I thought he was a friend of my parents. But yeah, I just kind of I took an immature route by shouting at him, but he backed
well,
up.
so and my youngest daughter, was also with me, and then she said, "Ali, you didn't have to be so rude." And then I said, "How many times did Ali ask that man to step away?" And she's like, "Twice." And I said, "Okay." And then my husband said, "Do you think?" Oh, by the way, it's not until I said, "That's my daughter," that he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, mom." And then he left her alone.
Mm.
And then my husband told my youngest daughter, "Do you think he would have left Ali alone just because she said that?" And then we said, "Well, probably not, because he kept trying to bug her." And I said, "You know what?" I said, "You can't be embarrassed to protect yourself. You can't be kind. Sometimes you got to be rude and just set the tone and say, you know what? Leave me alone. Because if you're nice, they might come back and bug you again." And I told my youngest, it's okay. What she did and how she handled it is just fine.
Really listening to your inner voice. I think a lot of what you were just describing as a challenge that you've mastered it. It sounds like, but it's this. My voice, my inner self is telling me this ain't right. I'm feeling uncomfortable, and then listening and acting upon that inner voice. Because not everyone does that. Some people stifle it, don't you think?
Yeah. A lot of people kind of and I'm guilty of this too. A lot of people like suppress kind of their own needs or their own wants for like the betterment of like the situation or maybe to try and be the mediator. But
Mm.
that was a situation where I was like, "No, this is a creep." So I just completely shut that down and I knew when to lock in and defend myself.
Well, then, okay, so you gave me a really rich turn the tables question. Let's go back to our guest. I think her answer. Oh, wait, I think you have to answer some of it too for our fourth question.
I'll answer it first and then I'll pass it to you, mom. Okay? If I could wave a magic wand, how would I help all girls and boys as they grow up to participate in healthy relationships?
Mm,
Let's see. I would suggest that people, because like you said, boys and girls grow up. I'm thinking like people my age, right? But
mhm,
I'd suggest, not just because I do it, but it has helped. Okay, I'd suggest a lot of self-reflection. You know what I mean? Because everyone's different, right? Everyone has different thought processes. Everyone takes in the same occurrences. Everyone takes it differently. Like you've heard the phrase, not everyone's read the same book. Like, you know what I mean? Everyone has different backgrounds, interpretations. So I think as long as people sort of listen to themselves, they can stay true to themselves, but they also have to learn how to be a decent person. And what that means to
mm.
depends obviously on like their background, maybe their religious beliefs, what they've learned. But like I said earlier, it's about finding a balance and learning to apply that when they are in a relationship.
Yeah, and so you're going to answer in just a second, Cynthia, but I did want to just reflect right quick, Ale, on, yeah, some people will say, I got mad in this circumstance. I just got really angry. And it's that self reflection is, okay, what was the trigger there? Why were you angry or sad or, even happy? Like, why, what is it? Unpack it a little bit and think about like what contributed to that emotion. I guess it goes back to making the faces that your mom was talking about before.
Right. Yes. Yeah, being able to like what's up? What is it that I'm feeling? Why am
Mm,
I feeling this way? Why is
mm.
it important? How should I handle it? How should I react? Should I react? All of it. Yeah.
You let me poach for a follow up for Ale, but what do you think about that question, Cynthia?
If I had a magic wand, I think what I would do is, um, I think educating our youth is extremely important,
Mm,
but I think that we should be educating people who carrying a child,
mhm,
like who are pregnant. Like they need to buy in. We're waiting to educate kids when they're in school, and I think that's a little late.
mm,
Um, I think that when you're pregnant, you need to think, how do I want to raise this child? How do I want this child to be? So if all like, parents to be were to like take this healthy relationships and decide right there and then that they're going to become an example for their children, um, then these kids are growing up seeing the example instead of having to learn it when they already picked up all these bad habits.
mhm.
Because then it's kind of working backwards. But I just think that education needs to become somehow magic wand. And you're pregnant and you just have this moment where you learned everything, right? I mean, magic wand, that's what it would be like. Um, for women, just speaking as for myself, um, I never say anything negative about myself. I never say anything that's going to put myself down. I never say in front of my husband, I'm so fat. No, I have weight issues. No, no. I am always going to act in even if I don't believe it personally, I'm not going to say it out loud because how you label yourself is how people are going to see you. Right. So I wish that everybody um, knew how their their personal views of themselves can actually affect the way that their kids see the world.
I have asked the magic wand question, I think 4 times now, and all amazing answers. And I've committed to writing them all down. And by the end of the season, we're gonna have like, I don't know, 15 or 20 magic wands. But how do you ever accomplish something if you don't begin to envision it? And so I wanna help us all begin to envision it using the magic wand. I don't know if it's a Harry Potter wand or a Astropithecus. I don't even know what word I'm using, but magic spells. So those are both really amazing magic wands. So
Thank you.
um so I have to, Cynthia, tell you thank you. You've given us so much time this evening, you too, Ale, but I have to thank you for your time now, but also your time in knowing you and your friendship. When I think of a fun person and someone that I can depend on to fight the good fight, to be the best feminist and do it with a smile and maybe a margarita or so here and there, that's you. And so you're definitely one of my favorite comadres for sure.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you. You are mine too.
I
Always
love
have
being a
been there for me.
comadre. I'll
Yes.
take it.
This is Teacher Hot Tips. I am Rachel Mullins. I'm the theater arts teacher at Eastwood High School in El Paso, Texas. I've been teaching for 17 years in public education. I'm also the president and artistic director of Star on the Mountain Theatrical Productions, a local nonprofit community theater group. My work in theater arts in public school has proven over and over again to me how theater builds a healthy self image in young people. I've worked with everyone from the age of 8 to 18 and then beyond. And it never ceases to amaze me what can come out of somebody who engages in theater arts as a practice. Theater builds healthy self image by fostering confidence, empathy, and self expression in a safe and collaborative environment. It encourages people to step out of their comfort zone and see themselves as someone else for a small amount of time. The empathy building comes from that storytelling, that looking at what's going on stage and asking yourself, if that's true for you or not, seeing that representation, or even if it's an experience you've never had, it's something that you get to try on for a little bit while you're portraying characters. Stepping into another's shoes can be incredibly important when tackling diverse perspectives and sticky topics or uncomfortable situations. Self expression takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to understand what you have to put out there. And sometimes you don't even know what it is yourself until you're given an opportunity in a play or in a scene, or given a paintbrush to create a set piece, or asked to put together a costume that reflects a character. You might not know you have a skill until you're the one person who has the time to go and solve the problem for the company, for the theater group. So it's very self-exploratory in that way as well. I wanted to talk about what Stephanie said about we all should be telling our own stories. And while theater at its core is storytelling, it is storytelling of not only classics, not only what is printed on the page, but there's always a space in theater for your own story. Even when exploring your own character or your own design process and creating a piece, very much of yourself is poured into it. The text on the page only comes to life with your interpretation of it, with what you yourself, the performer, takes from that text, and that is very personal and self-expressive. And it's so powerful to see kids, the students grappling with meaning. You know, why is this character? Why do I have to say these words right now to this person? And like, that's a great question, and that's for you to figure out. That's for you to make sense of, and that's where our students learn to trust themselves and believe in themselves and discover what it means to really have that self-expression, is that what you have to say matters. Your story matters. And to tag on to what Valora was saying about, if she could wave a magic wand, she would you give kids confidence to focus on themselves. That is the power of being the main character in your story. Every character on stage is the main character in their own story, whether they have 100 lines or 10 lines. That character is a main character in their own story, and it's coming at life as a protagonist. You are the protagonist, so you want to come at situations with protagonist energy. The reader is cheering for you, the audience is cheering for you. We want to see what your end game is, and that's something that can come out of focusing on the self and how you fit into the larger group of the presentation, of the show, of the performance, of the set building, of the costumes putting together. We say there are no small roles in theater, and as cliche as that sounds, it is absolutely true. Over and over again, when someone is missing from rehearsal, that absence is felt. Someone has to step in and take on that responsibility, or that delivery didn't quite happen the way it needed to because that specific person wasn't there. So there are no small roles in theater, and we are all protagonists in our own story. And a great way to build that healthy self image is to dip your feet into the fine arts as much as you can and get those stories told. And that's my teacher hot tip.
Hey, Ale, is there anything you want to add?
Yes, special thanks to Jennifer Ann's group for supporting this project. Want to know more about the amazing teen dating violence prevention work that Jennifer Ann's group does? Head to jenniferann.org to find out more, and then follow them on Facebook and